The vinyl record aftermarket can be crazy. Records that shoot up in price oftentimes have no rhyme or reason, and you can't really predict it that well. I've gotten better at predicting which records are ones I should jump on immediately, and which ones I'll probably have a better chance at later, and it's based on looking at my collection as it is right now. So in this video, I want to talk about my best vinyl record investments. And yes, I know investment is a very triggering word for some people. In the video I did recently about record flippers, I talked about how a lot of people tend to ignore the value of their collection and how it's not a factor for them. But I think it's really important to know the value of your investment, because anything you buy and keep is technically an investment. And it's important to look at some of these trajectories and understand why they jumped up in price so much to help you plan your buys in the future. So these are not my absolute rarest, most expensive records, but here are the ones that I got for the lowest prices that jumped up the highest amount, and I'm going to speculate as to why that might be. And I'm not going to include my Pearl Jam signed Benaroya Hall, which I'm sure you guys saw the video of. If you haven't, I just linked it above. That is definitely my best investment ever, because a signed copy of a $2,000 record is probably an insane appreciation, but I never plan to sell that, and I also have no actual ballpark number to go off of what that would be worth, so I'm leaving that out, and that's obviously my best one, but these ones are interesting too. First up, we have the Inside Llewyn Davis soundtrack recording. First of all, I love how they kind of mimicked like an old style jacket with this, which matches the theme of the film very well. If you haven't seen this, it's a Coen Brothers movie, Oscar Isaac. He plays a singer-songwriter. It's unbelievable. I love this movie, and the music is fantastic. It's one of the only times I can actually stand Marcus Mumford, and there's some good stuff by Justin Timberlake and Oscar Isaac himself. It's just a really good kind of 60s vibe folk album, and when this first came out, they were doing a promotion. They were selling it back in 2013 for what it would have cost back in the day. So back when this would have come out at the time of the film, they charged $6 for this LP, which is a really good deal for such great music. This is now out of print, and it goes for a lot more. In 2021, this could be worth up to $150. I think the reason this one jumped up in price is just because it's a desirable soundtrack. Oscar Isaac has gotten more famous. The Coen brothers are heralded as amazing directors, and it hasn't had a repress yet. I do see this one getting a repress in the future, but I'm glad to have this one. It's a cool story behind it. Next up, we have Metallica with the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra, the famous S&M show. This is one of my favorite albums, especially one of my favorite live albums. It contains breathtaking versions of Metallica's songs with a full orchestra. I mean, the track list is stellar, and this version is a 6-disc version that really kind of, it's kind of a pain to listen to in this format because you gotta flip a lot, but it sounds fantastic. There's also a standard, I think, 3-disc version, maybe 4, I don't remember, that's not in this big box set, but the box set comes on black vinyl, and then also on yellow vinyl, which is a rare limited version that they sent out to their fan club only. This version is even rarer than that. In 2019, I got extremely lucky, and I managed to grab this for $150. They said the box was a little worn, which it is, but if I ever wanted to replace it down the road, I could always just get the standard black and swap out the box if the box is in better shape. But it's not bad enough for me to be concerned about. But this version is actually one that almost never pops up. It is on white vinyl. This was a mispress. This was not intentionally the color. They were going for yellow, they got white. There's said to be less than 150 copies of this available, and the discs are immaculate. The box has some wear, but the discs, near mint. And I can't believe that the guy was selling it for $150. I was shocked when I saw it pop up and that no one had bought it before me. I guess I was just right place, right time. Nowadays, copies of this pop up for around $500 to $700, if they even pop up. Metallica fans are diehards, so a lot of them are holding on to this, so you very rarely see it in the aftermarket. So I feel very lucky to have this incredibly limited version of one of my favorite albums. And the reason it's so expensive is because A, it's Metallica, and B, there's about 150 copies, which for a band of their size is an extremely limited run. Here we have Kanye West's Late Orchestration, the promo version in the Rockefeller sleeve. There's a lot of misinformation about this flying around, and I don't even know the truth behind it. Some say this itself is a bootleg. I don't think it is, personally. First of all, I have the bootleg, which sounds good. It came out, I think, last year. But this sounds better, I have to say, having listened to both. It has the Rockefeller-style labels, it has the jacket, it has a little sticker on top to show the cover of it. Bootlegs often aren't in this style. They usually have full-color sleeves, or they're just in a plain black jacket or white jacket with a white label or something simple. This seems to me like a DJ promo that was sent out to specific DJs or labels as like a promotional thing for the album back when Late Orchestration came out. Like, Orchestration is the orchestral show that Kanye did around the time Late Registration came out, where he played a ton of his hits with an orchestra. Much like Metallica, it really brings the songs to life. And this is one of the most desirable, if not the most desirable, Kanye grails. Back in 2017, I got extremely lucky on Discogs. I paid $73 for this. Now, even with the bootleg having come out, the prices haven't dropped that much. This tends to go for between $600 and $800 in the aftermarket. I thought when the bootleg came out it would tank the price for sure, but no, people are still after this one. Despite the fact that there are some folk out there saying that this is a bootleg, you know what? I have both. I think this sounds better. Maybe it's placebo. I don't know, but I love this copy, and this is one of my favorite live shows, so I'm stoked to have this version. This one I couldn't believe I found last year. This is The National's A Lot of Sorrow. So back in 2013, The National did an art installation at the MoMA, where they stood in a room and played the song Sorrow for something crazy, like 8 hours straight. I can't remember the exact amount, but this is 9 discs of them non-stop performing Sorrow, which is one of the best cuts on High Violet in my opinion. And it comes in this kind of fragile, clear case. I'm actually kind of terrified holding it. It's so fragile. Each disc is inside of its own clear sleeve. And when this retailed, I thought it was kind of a ridiculous concept, and I didn't buy it because it was close to $200. Nowadays, The National's gotten even more famous, and this tends to sell between $600 and $1,000 whenever it goes up. At the time, all proceeds were going to charity, which is actually kind of cool. I never thought I would want to own this as a collector's item, but as I've realized that I have almost everything else, I couldn't not have this. I wasn't gonna pay those crazy prices, but I went into a Portland record store last year and I saw this in the original box on their shelf for $199.99. I couldn't believe it, especially with how high the prices have gone, so I grabbed it. The reason the prices went so high is, like I said, A, The National's gotten more famous, and B, it's never gonna get a repress. It is so unbelievably cumbersome and unwieldy. It's fragile. It was a one-time thing. There's no reason to ever repress this, so it's a really cool grail for National fans. I don't think I'll ever fully listen to this, but maybe I'll get crazy one day. Next up is the Alice in Chains Music on Vinyl pressing on red marble vinyl. So Music on Vinyl tends to do these pressings that are limited occasionally and numbered. This one is not numbered, but it is still limited. I think the color of the record matches perfectly with the art. I really love this. Back in 2017, I picked this up when I was at Amoeba. They were marketing it as a used record, and it has a seam split on top, so they were saying that on they had a little arrow pointing to it. It was $35 for the colored version. I don't know what happened, but this exploded in price. I don't know if more people discovered grunge or this band in general, or I truly don't know. Maybe it was their new album that came out that reinvigorated some fans, but this shot up in price dramatically. This now goes for $300 to $400 whenever it pops up. The pressing itself sounds fantastic. Really brings the instruments to life in this really aggressive and catchy record. And I'm really stoked to have this. This is maybe my favorite grunge record. It's hard to say, but it's got to be top 2. So yeah, I don't know why this one jumped up in price necessarily. Probably just because there hasn't been another colored press. Now, if you're watching this video and you're going to click out right now because you don't know this record, I highly advise you hold on a second. This is an album that I recommend with the highest of high recommendations. Honestly, if there's any album that you take a chance on my recommendations for and you are at all into kind of like lo-fi hip-hop, beat tapes, down-tempo electronic, anything that's kind of chill and laid back, this album is my highest recommendation. This is Moo or Mao. I don't know how to pronounce it. M-O-O-W. I can't tell you how much it hurts. This is one of the most transcendent beat tapes I've ever heard. It is so fragile and emotional and beautiful, and some of the tracks are just lush with these incredible samplings, and I've never heard anything like it, and it is an absolute standout within the genre. This is something that I've showed multiple people, and every time they fall absolutely in love with it. It's not just like, yeah, that was pretty cool. It's like I am obsessed with this record now. And I picked it up on vinyl digital when they pressed, I think, 300 copies. It was maybe back in 2017-ish. Now, people have caught on to how good this album is, and it goes for way more. Usually about $250 to $300 if it even pops up. This is one that people don't want to get rid of. I think the reason why this is so rare now is A, Moo disappeared. There's no more albums by Moo. I think after doing some research, he might have reinvented himself as an artist named Monica. I've done a lot of research about it, and I think I'm correct, but I don't want to say that as a fact. This, though, is by far the best of all of the stuff, even though Monica is also terrific. This is just such a special record. The magical quality it emanates is unlike anything within the genre of like lo-fi tapes. And it samples Soulja Boy at one point. I mean, To sample Soulja Boy and make it a beautiful song, that's talent right there. But I think probably the unlicensed sample, I'm assuming, of Soulja Boy, as well as some other kind of unlicensed samples, means this isn't going to get a repress. And because it's kind of an obscure artist who only had this one release, it's kind of getting hard to find. Next up, we got Peggy, JPEGMAFIA, Black Ben Carson. This is the first vinyl pressing, and it was only sold at some shows in 2019. I actually couldn't make it to the show in LA at the time, and a guy who watches this channel actually hooked it up for me. He picked up a copy for me, and I met up with him, and I paid him, and he was super cool about it. And thank you for this, because this is one of my favorite underground hip-hop tapes, without a doubt. It's so consistent front to back, and probably my favorite thing JPEGMAFIA has ever done. Also, the colorway is incredible for this one. I really love this kind of like green with black swirl. Very unique. Can't think of another record I own that's like this. It was $40 at the show, which is reasonable for a 2-disc album, I think, especially a limited one. And now it goes for about $350 to $400. A repress was just announced for this. I think it's actually an expanded version with, I think, 3 discs. The thing is that they're not really being upfront about is that a lot of it has been slightly altered. Some samples are missing, some samples are rearranged or just completely replaced. So this is the only way to get the tape as it is, and the repress, while it'll sound good and very similar, is going to miss a couple things just because they didn't clear the samples, etc., etc. So I'm happy to own this original one, and I think when people realize this is the unedited version, the price will stay here. A little more hip-hop for you. This is Benny the Butcher, Tana Talk 3. So Benny the Butcher is one of the 3 horsemen of the dope apocalypse. Westside Gunn, Conway, and Benny the Butcher are leading the front in the underground hip-hop scene. And Dope, this little company right here, they are masters of FOMO drops, making limited things that sell out instantly and go for 3-4 times the price most of the time in the aftermarket right after the fact. It helps that this is one of the best full releases that Dope has ever put out. I would put this up with like Reject 2 and Fly God and some of the best underground tapes of the past 5 or 6 years. This one sold out extremely fast. I got very lucky to grab one when it was on sale. And because it's one of the best tapes, and it's also one that sold out fast, the prices for this one out of control. I think I paid $38 before shipping for this one on their site, which is pretty reasonable. It's, this is the splatter variant, which is awesome. So, really good, pretty press. Nowadays, I kid you not, this goes for $500 or $700, which sounds like an insane amount, but dope collectors are willing to pay this for stuff from the 3 big guns. Reject 2, Griselda Ghost, Fly God, those are going for even more than this. So this is actually not the tip top. I have a lot to say about the underground record aftermarket, and I actually talk about it a little bit in a video I can link up there. But ultimately, I'm happy to own this because this is one of my favorite hip-hop tapes in a while. Super consistent, and Benny is my favorite of the 3 head honchos of the Griselda movement. Let's talk Spangle. Are you Spangled? Spangle is, I love Spangle. If you guys saw my room tour, you saw that I have a poster right there, a foil poster of this incredible art. This is the Spangle symbol. It's this head with many eyes and tentacles, and it's pretty trippy. Spangle is a psytrance band. It's Simon Posford and Raja Ram. They are amazing together. I think psytrance or Goa trance is hit or miss for me, but Spangle really scratches that itch of something that's really meditative, and it takes you on a journey, and it's entrancing and lush for your ears. And Are You Spangled is their first album and the first one that got me into them. When I got into vinyl, this was out of print, and it was a standard, I think, 2 or 3 disc pressing that was going for $200-300 in the aftermarket. But Simon decided to do hyper deluxes for all of these, and he has reissued just about the whole catalog on these massive, beautiful reissues. They're basically books with this spot foil and this gloss, and they're very high quality, and the records sound amazing, most importantly. 2017, I paid $72 for this, which I thought was a lot, but I knew that A, if I missed out then, it would be gone forever. And I was right. Now it's worth close to $400, give or take, and this is one that won't get a repress likely because the amount of money to put down for a project like this, because of how in-depth the packaging is, it's just not easy to repress it. It may get a repress in a standard version at some point. I wouldn't be surprised if we did a box set at some point, but to get this super, super deluxe version, I knew I had to pounce, and I'm glad I did because it's one of my favorite electronic records. And last but not least, this is William Basinski's The Disintegration Loops. This is an iconic piece in drone ambient music history. It was inspired by the tragic events of 9/11, and I think a copy of this was actually in the 9/11 museum at one point. It's the disintegration of tapes in a way that it's just heartbreaking and emotional and entrancing, and there's multiple different loops within this box set, and they're all such incredible music that's hard to listen to when you're not in that kind of mood to really kind of mentally tear yourself apart as you listen to something so fragile. I love this release. I don't think I spin it too often, but I do think it's a great collector's piece for someone who's into ambient music, and especially with the historical value. Now, in 2014, I paid $125 for this. They called it, I think, a scratch and dent sale. They had some extras after the original sold out. I truly don't see any dents. I remember getting it and being like, wow, this looks pretty perfect to me. So I grabbed it, and it was definitely my best buy ever, because repressing something of this magnitude, there's a huge booklet, all these really thick jackets. Each one has its own gatefold jacket that's thicker and better quality than most gatefold jackets in general. Also, I met William Basinski at a pop-up in LA, and he signed my copy. So it's signed to me, which I guess if I ever were to sell this, which I don't plan to, that would probably reduce the value because it's not just a generic signature, it's to me specifically. But I'm sure some people would just be stoked on the signature as is. It goes for $800 to $1,000 now, and that's unsigned. So this is definitely the craziest appreciation. And I think it's because it's not likely to get a repress, and it's so iconic. I think Pitchfork gave it a 10 out of 10. So definitely something I'm proud to have in my collection. So I hope some of that logic helps you maybe figure out some stuff about your own collection. Maybe you can look at records and try to figure out why they jumped up in price. Drop a comment with what you think was your best buy, in the sense of you paid not too much and it jumped up in price without you realizing it. And if you can, say why you think it happened. I'm always curious to read that kind of stuff. So thank you for watching this video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. I got a ton of vinyl stuff coming your way, and there are more videos coming soon. So thanks for watching, and take it easy.